After reviewing Bad Dudes a couple weeks ago, I wanted to cover a beat-em-up game that was on the NES and was a bit more fun. Not that Bad Dudes was bad, it was just incredibly mediocre. Well, they don't get much more fun than this game right here, Mighty Final Fight. This here's the Famicom version. You probably already know why I have this and not the NES version. If not, I'll explain that later. Let's just talk about the game. Released in the summer of 1993 for all regions, Mighty Final Fight is a retelling of the events from the original Final Fight, this time in a chibi-fied or super deformed art style. The Japanese were big into small-bodied characters with big heads long before Funko Pops made it popular over here. Anyway, as you may already know, the Mad Gear Gang has kidnapped Jessica, daughter of ex-wrestler turned mayor Mike Hagar, girlfriend of Cody Travers. The two and Cody's friend Guy, who doesn't seem to have a last name, set out to deal justice in the form of some serious ass-kicking. All the familiar enemies are present, but in a more cartoony form. The leader of Mad Gear, Belger, has some cybernetic upgrades like his appearance in the later Final Fight games. Unlike the Nintendo ports of Final Fight to the GBA and the Super Nintendo, Poison and Roxy are present. I guess when everything's all chibi and cute, it's okay to beat up women. But what's not okay is having characters named Damned and Sodom. Just like in the NES game, I believe these two are renamed Thrasher and Katana here. Like with the art design in the game, everything is presented in a much less serious, more cartoony fashion. Eyes bugging out of people's heads when they get hit, exaggerated pained expressions. But just because they created this kind of off-the-wall, silly look for this one, doesn't mean the gameplay is watered down. In fact, it's just the opposite. There's more to the gameplay in this game than the original arcade game it was based on. The three heroes, Hagar, Cody, and Guy, all have different attributes. Hagar's the slower, stronger one, Cody's the well-rounded one, and Guy is the faster, weaker one. In the original Final Fight, I always preferred pile-driving enemies as Mike Hagar, but this time around, Cody is my preferred character for taking to the streets of Metro City. Hagar just moves way too slow and it takes too many hits to put away adversaries as Guy. Hagar is still my favorite in the original though. Like with the NES version of Double Dragon, they implemented a bit of an experience system. It's not very deep, but it is there. The kind of attack you use to finish off an opponent will grant you a varying number of experience points, with the grapple attack being most difficult to pull off, giving you the highest. Leveling up will enable you to do an extra special attack or extend your life bar. Both are very good to have, as this game is not a cakewalk. It's not ridiculous or anything, but some of the enemies are kind of cheap or just hard to pin down in general. Not to the point of frustration, but it is a fair amount of challenge. That said, it's not a very long game, only 5 levels. Once you get the hang of things, it wouldn't be unheard of to get through the game in about 45 minutes or so. If you're not above cheating, a turbo controller can be pretty effective. Even more effective, of course, would be some Game Genie action. I can make it up to the last stage right before you meet Belger without any cheating, but I can't make it any further. This game was one of the last games Capcom produced for the NES, and as you can imagine, developers knew what to do with the system at this point. Moving away from any semblance of realism was the best way of making a Final Fight game on an 8-bit console. The visuals are just fun to look at and work surprisingly well with this kind of game. Battletoads and River City Ransom proved that a cartoony beat-em-up would work in 8 bits, and this one follows suit nicely. Musically, the game is also a treat, but that's what you got from most Capcom games on the NES. I will say that the sound effects do leave a bit to be desired, but this music is downright awesome. Between being a rather late release for the NES and also being a pretty darn good game, this one does fetch quite a bit of money on the used market. It's somewhere around $200 for a loose cartridge here in the US. However, if you absolutely have to get a physical copy, you can get the Famicom game for quite a bit cheaper if you don't mind it not being in English for the most part. And also, it's on the GBA as part of the Capcom Classics Mini Mix, which contains this, Strider, and Bionic Commando, which are also awesome games if you're not familiar with them. And lastly, if you like digital copies, it's on the Wii U and 3DS Virtual Console. I think it might even be on the Wii as well. In closing, is the game any good? I'd say absolutely. Is it $200 good? I don't know. I'll leave that up for you and your wallet to decide. You can see how my choice was made. Anyway, what's your favorite beat 'em up game on the NES? I'm not sure if I've asked this question before, but let's have at it. Let's go. I think this is pretty tough to beat. Hope you've enjoyed the review. Thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care.